Welcome to Legal Aspects of the Education System. My name is Mr. Law and I will be your host through the exciting world of school litigation.
Excuse me. Who am I? Chopped liver?
Oh, how could I forget? This is my lovely co-host, Miss Statute.
Thank you very much. You are too gracious. Now, on with the lesson, shall we?
As we look at the authority that governs schools, you will undoubtedly find yourself saying, oh, that's why it is done that way. Sources of law that influence education exist in many layers. It is important to understand these layers and the principles that govern each.
This, more than having a photographic memory of every landmark case, or educational law, will help you make sound administrative decisions that do not break the law. Learning what you don't know is perhaps the best approach you can take as a new principal.
There are three primary sources of school law as you can see here. Let's begin by discussing constitutions. We will then move on to statutes and finally, case law. The 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution stipulates that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. This effectively makes public education a state-directed affair as it is not directly mentioned in the federal constitution. All 50 states have adopted state constitutions that commit them to providing education.
Two important notes regarding federal influence over education. 1. Although a state government's power over education is plenary, meaning full or absolute, it is diminished when it accepts federal education funds. And 2. Judicial interpretation of the 14th Amendment has had a large impact on state education policy making. The federal government influences education by providing grant money to states for educational purposes via congressional statutes. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 is an example of this type of law. This act was part of President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty.
The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 was a sweeping reform of this law. The purpose was to improve the academic performance of schools that receive federal title funding.
Thus, when states accept federal funds they can cede some authority over education. In this case, states must show how their schools meet adequate yearly progress to receive funds.
At the state level in Pennsylvania, the General Assembly is the ordained school board of the Commonwealth and creates state-level laws to govern education. The General Assembly created school districts and school boards to carry out the details of education. This is the basis of local control of education. School board members essentially act as agents of the General Assembly when they conduct school board meetings to govern individual school districts. In addition, educational authority has been delegated to other agencies created by the Assembly, such as the State Board of Education and the Department of Education.
The legislative branch enacts statutes, or laws, that directly impact education in PA. Pennsylvania's compilation of education-specific statutes is referred to as the Public School Code of 1949. After each General Assembly session, legislative acts are published as pamphlet law. These acts often add to the body of laws or statutes that regulate education.
Some statutes give an agency in the executive branch the authority to adopt rules to further carry out the statute. Armed with this authority, the executive branch agency adopts rules by following a rule-making procedure.
Well said indeed, Mr. Law.
Thank you, Miss Statute. You are too kind.
An example of some of these rules and regulations created by the executive branch are collected in the Pennsylvania Code.
Remember, the Pennsylvania Code is not the same as the Public School Code of 1949. The former are regulations, not laws.
Likewise, the Department of Education has authority to enact new rules and regulations that govern education or implement laws.
This is a rather busy slide if I do say so myself. I am afraid that this could be quite difficult to explain. In fact, it will be best understood after you read the document entitled, Statutes and Regulations. You can download this file from the Angel site. You may want to take notes and refer to this slide as you read the selection. It is an excerpt from the Pennsylvania School Law Handbook, published by PSPA. Later in the course, there is a web activity that will show you how to access these laws and other resources online for free.
This concludes part 1 of this presentation. After the reading assignment, proceed to part 2, where we will discuss case law in detail.
You are amazing, Miss Statute.
Why, thank you, Mr. Law.
You're quite welcome.